Hi y'all! In today's video, I'm going to be giving a very down-to-earth, very practical guide to Japan's public transportation system. Let's get right into it. So, you want to come to Japan, you want to visit Japan or live here in Japan. If you do so, you're going to need to know these things about the Japanese public transportation system. Here in Japan, there are so many different ways you can get around without a car. Those include buses, trains, the bullet train, shinkansen, and flying. So I'll be covering those 4 modes of transportation in today's video. I'll go over how to use those modes of transportation, which one of those modes of transportation is best for certain situations, and the general cost, things like that. Let's go. So starting off with buses. You can basically take buses basically anywhere in the country, and there are several different types of buses. So the first type of bus is like a local bus. So for example, in cities where trains aren't nearly as connected, like in Tokyo, trains go everywhere, but for example, in smaller cities like Takamatsu or Hiroshima, places like that, where trains don't really connect everywhere as much as in Tokyo, you're going to need to use buses to get around, and these local buses act as kind of like getting you to anywhere in the city that you need to go. And to ride these buses, oftentimes you'll need exact change, and conveniently at the front of the bus, there will be oftentimes a little machine where you can insert larger bills or larger coins, and it'll spit out smaller coins for you to use to pay that exact change. However, if you're like me and you don't want to have to deal with exact change or whatever, you can get a Suica or Passmo card. So these cards are in general called IC cards, and they're basically cards that you load money onto, and you can use these cards to take basically almost any public transportation in Japan, except for flights and the shinkansen, I think. So, or other special modes of transportation. But generally, the local form of transportation, like the buses, the trains, etc., you can use your Suica or Passmo card. There are many other different IC cards, but Suica and Passmo are the most common. You can use those cards to pay for your public transportation. So, because buses require exact change, and I don't like that, I pay using my Passmo card. And to do this, there are 2 different types of buses. So the first type of bus is a flat rate bus, where you only pay one amount no matter how long the distance is. And if this is the type of bus you get on, then you will only tap your IC card when you get off. So whatever entrance is the on entrance, the other entrance, the off entrance, is where you tap your IC card. The other type of bus will charge you based off of distance that you travel. So if you're taking that bus, you'll want to tap your IC card when you get on, and then again when you get off. So there will be 2 spots for you to tap. Okay, and it's worth it to note that though Japan's public transportation system is known to be super on time, buses are kind of the exception to this. I feel like, anywhere in the world, buses have the chance to be late because traffic is unpredictable. Thus, do not expect your bus to be exactly on time like you would with other modes of transportation. It might be late. Forewarning with that. Another type of bus that's worth mentioning is the highway bus. So highway buses come less frequently, and you kind of need to reserve them in advance. So these buses, you don't really use your IC card to pay just when you get on or whatever. You look them up online and you book them through whatever website. I like to use Willers. Once you've booked your reservation, you take that bus for that single trip kind of thing. It's more like a flight in that sense, but it's a bus. And what's good about these buses is that they go longer distances. So it's not just within a local city. You can take this bus, for example, I've taken the Hiroshima to Osaka bus, and it was a long bus, so it was an overnight one. So I slept on this bus, and it was really convenient because they would have these little covers that would come over your seat, so you would be laying back, and then there would be a cover that would come over and block your, top of your head or whatever, so that it would be dark when you would sleep and stuff like that, and you wouldn't be disturbed. And they also provided blankets, so it was a very comfortable experience despite it being on a bus. And these buses are very convenient for traveling between cities because they're probably one of the cheaper options to do so. So I recommend, if you're traveling between two cities and there is a bus option and you want the cheapest option, take the bus option. And make sure to reserve your bus maybe like a month or so in advance, because that's when it's probably the cheapest. If you reserve it like the week of or whatever, it's not going to be as cheap, and the selection is going to be much decreased, because I think because they're cheap, they tend to go fast. So if you're planning a trip in advance, the bus is one of the best options to get between cities. Yes. The next mode of transportation I want to discuss is the train. So trains, there are many different types of trains. The most common one you'll probably ride is the local train. So local trains will take you anywhere in the city just like the buses, and they tend to be more reliable and faster than buses. So like I said before, it's notorious here in Japan for trains to arrive exactly on the minute that it says and then leave exactly when it says. So that is definitely true here in Japan. Of course there are exceptions, like I've seen exceptions, for example, heavy rain. Heavy rain has caused delays. Unfortunately, some people attempting suicide on train tracks causes delays, which is really unfortunate, but that's a big problem here in Japan. Hurricanes, otherwise known as taifu, here in Japan cause delays. So there are various things that could cause delays. Those are the main ones that I've seen, but most of the time, the trains will arrive exactly when you want, which is really convenient if you're trying to plan trips. Anyways, you can use your IC card to pay for these trains, these local trains. There will be a system of gates where you tap your card on entry into the gates, and the gates will let you into the platform where the trains will be, and then when you leave, you'll exit again through some gates and you'll tap your IC card again. And I think all of the trains you will pay based on distance. So unlike the buses where there were two different types, it's not like that. All of the trains will have you pay for distance. So the longer you go, the more you will pay. Of course, if you don't have an IC card, there will be little pay stations where you can purchase physical tickets to use. So in these, you'll just enter in some cash or whatever, select the destination, I think, that you want to go to, and then it will give you like a physical ticket that you'll insert into the gates. There'll be like a little slot where you insert into the gates, and then it'll let you in. Make sure to take the ticket when you go in, because it'll spit it out at the end of the gate. You take it, and then when you leave, you insert it again, and then it'll eat it up. You won't be able to take it from there. So make sure you take your ticket when you insert it the first time. Remember. Those are the local trains, but there are also many different types of special trains you can take in Japan, like, for example, the shinkansen or the romance car. I'll cover the shinkansen. Won't go so much into the other ones because they're less common. You probably would only use them if you want to go on special trips, like, for example, the romance car is probably only used between Tokyo and Hakone, so I'll leave those aside. But mainly, the shinkansen, you might really want to take while in Japan, so it's worth noting. The shinkansen, otherwise known as the bullet train, is one of the most convenient ways of traveling really long distances in Japan. So, as I said before, you can take a bus from Hiroshima to Osaka, and that bus exists, but it takes a really long time, right, because it's on the street, so they get over that by having it be overnight. But if you were impatient and you just wanted to get there in like an hour or two, you can take the Shinkansen. The way it works is it's a separate express ticket on top of your normal ticket. So the stations are all organized so that if your particular station is also a Shinkansen station, the Shinkansen gates will be within the train gates. So you'll have two sets of gates that you will need to enter into. The first set of gates, and then the second set of special Shinkansen gates. So because of that, when you ride the Shinkansen, there will be two tickets that you will have for each direction. So if you're having a round trip kind of thing, you have two tickets going and then two tickets coming back. And those two tickets are because first you need to get into the station itself through that first set of gates, and the second set of gates is for the Shinkansen. So here's actually how it works. You will use your general to from ticket to get into the first set of gates. And then you will use what's called the express ticket or whatever. It'll say it on the ticket like express, and insert both of those two tickets into the second set of gates. So just think about it like that, like the Shinkansen gates within the station require both of those tickets, and the wider gates that encompass the station just require the one to from ticket. It's a little confusing, and it really confused me because I was like, why are there 2 tickets? Why are there so many here? How do I keep track of them? But just think of it like that. That's how I've like internalized it, and it's really helped me. There are 2 sets of gates, and you just need to remember which tickets are associated with which gates. It is also worth it to note that the Shinkansen ticket situation allows you to go out of the station gates if you need to, like, I don't know, go eat something or something. And I'll explain how that works. If you go from a separate station, like for example, Saijo Station to Hiroshima Station where the Shinkansen was, and when you arrived at Hiroshima Station, you had some time before your Shinkansen left, you wanted to go shop around in the area or whatever, you can use your to from ticket to get out of the station before you go into the Shinkansen gate. So you could go out of the station and come back in using your to from ticket, because the to from ticket is from your original station, in this case Saijo Station, to wherever you have to go. So for example, I want to go to Himeji in that situation. The ticket will remember that you're at Hiroshima Station and not Himeji. So the gates will not eat your ticket if you exit. Isn't that just so incredible? So you can exit from Hiroshima, which is in between Saijo and Himeji, and it'll know that you're not Himeji yet. You're just in the middle. And so you can exit and then come back using your to from ticket. And then obviously when you go into the Shinkansen, you enter in both of those tickets. Yeah, well that's a little tidbit in case you were wondering, will it eat my ticket if I go out in the middle of those 2 spots? Yeah, getting those tickets is a little complicated depending on where you're starting from and where you're going. So I would recommend you talk with one of those people at the gates who sell these tickets. So if you go to a particular station that's a Shinkansen station, they will have a place where there are people like selling these tickets, where you can go get them. So I would recommend, that's the easiest way to buy these tickets. Just go to somebody who's selling them and buy them. The Shinkansen tickets tend to be quite expensive because they're an express train. All of the express trains in Japan will have some additional cost because of it. So for example, Shinkansen ticket from Tokyo to Osaka is like something like 35,000 yen, something like that. I think that will be the ofuku, so both directions, round trip. If you go a shorter distance, of course you will be charged less. So for example, I went to Himeji once from Hiroshima, and that was like 17,000 yen, so like $150. That's a lot more expensive than taking a bus. For example, my bus from Hiroshima to Osaka could be as low as like 3,000 yen, $30. So the price difference is quite insane. But you are paying for convenience because taking the train is much more reliable than taking a bus, and it takes quite shorter of time. So make that decision yourself, but just be careful. Riding the Shinkansen is a very fun experience because it's so smooth and the scenery goes by so fast, so it's quite a fun experience that I would recommend you try at least once if you come to Japan. But don't think you can take the Shinkansen however much you like without paying some cost, because it is quite expensive. It is also worth it to note that Shinkansens tend to shut down more often than local trains because of typhoons. Because the Shinkansen is a bullet train, it is very sensitive, I think, to the track state, and so things like typhoon and stuff will really mess up your schedule if you plan on taking the Shinkansen during that season. So make sure you look at the weather ahead of time and think, you know, am I actually going to be able to take this train? If there is a typhoon, I would recommend flying, which we'll talk about next. But first I will say that the Shinkansen ticket prices do not fluctuate at all. They're constant from any time of the year and for the distance that you're going. So just keep that in mind. You can choose to take the Shinkansen like the day before and it'll be the same price as like a month before. So contrary to the buses where you would have to reserve the bus like a month before to get the best prices, Shinkansen you can just decide on the fly in a sense. So that's nice. Now going on to flights. So this last major form of transportation, flights. Basically, flights work here just like they do in any kind of the world. You go to the airport, you check in your luggage if you have to, you go through security, and then you board the airplane, and it's just like all of that simple stuff. But I will have to say that if you don't buy your flights in advance, like the buses, so like a month, 2 months, however long before in advance, the prices get quite high. I would say they get maybe on par, if not higher than the Shinkansen. So if you buy your tickets in advance though, you can get some good deals. And there are some like budget airlines that you can fly and stuff if you don't have a lot of luggage. Yeah, those airlines obviously will charge you a ton for luggage. So if you don't have a lot of luggage, flying those budget airlines, like I think I rode Spring Japan once. And some of the major airlines like ANA or JAL will offer good deals if you buy them in advance. So just keep a lookout on that, and those deals will get much cheaper than Shinkansen. So if you buy in advance, flying is much cheaper than Shinkansen. But if it's just a spur of the moment thing, oftentimes I think Shinkansen will probably be your best bet because it's just more convenient. You don't have to go through security and stuff like that. You can take however much luggage you want on the train without paying anything, etc. So yeah, so let's just talk in general, kind of a ranking of what I would do if I was traveling throughout Japan. So if it's like a really long distance where there's no bus available, the cheapest option will again be flying if you buy the ticket in advance. If not, then go Shinkansen. Yes, most places in Japan are connected with Shinkansen. The kind of caveat to that is if you are going like from one end of the country to the other, like to Hokkaido from southern Japan, etc. That is going to be quite a long trip using Shinkansen, so I would probably fly in any case for that, because flying I think is the fastest of all of these modes of transportation. The next scenario is if the locations you're traveling between have a bus available. So for example, like I said before, Hiroshima and Osaka, though they're quite far away, they have a bus route between them. So I would choose bus if you, I guess, want to go the cheapest route. And next cheapest will probably be flying if you buy your tickets in advance, and then Shinkansen. If you don't buy your tickets in advance, then Shinkansen and then flying. But if you want to go the fastest, probably Shinkansen or flying, depending on the distance. Getting to an airport, going through security, etc. might take you a long time, and that might be inconvenient compared to the Shinkansen, where you can just go through the gates, get on the train, and that's it. So you'd have to kind of like give and take and see which one would be faster depending on your situation. But anyways, getting around Japan using public transportation is super convenient and easy, and it's all really easily connected to each other. So for example, I wanted to go to Tokyo from this small city in Hiroshima Prefecture. So I took a local bus to the nearest JR station, and then from that JR train station, I took the local train to another station where it connected me to the airport. And from that station, I took a bus from that station to the airport, another bus. So it's like bus, train, bus. And then now I'm at the airport. That whole part before I got to the airport, I paid through IC card. From airport, I took a plane to Tokyo. And then airports in Tokyo are all connected by train to the larger city of Tokyo. So I took a train from the airport to wherever I was staying. But yeah, it was all connected like that. I did not have to take a single car, taxi, whatever, Uber, whatever you want. I did not have to take any of those in that long trip from Hiroshima to Tokyo. Quite amazing. In fact, I could also do that through Shinkansen, which I've done before as well. Take Shinkansen instead of an airplane. So traveling without a car, without anything, is super easy in Japan, and I hoped this video was helpful in explaining exactly what you have to do to ride some of these specific modes of transportation, because when I got here, sometimes it was so confusing. Like, for example, the ticket thing. Oh geez. Well, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you found it helpful. I will see you again in another video on this channel. Bye bye!